On today's episode of the Cryptoverse, I have a chat with Bryan Snappy and John Spock from the PIVX community. Vaultoro is the one-of-a-kind online exchange where you can trade between gold and Bitcoin. Reserves can be audited online at any time and are protected from confiscation and company failure. Sign up for a free account today by checking out the link in the video description below. Hi there guys, and welcome to the latest episode of the Cryptoverse, your regular dose of news and commentary on Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies and blockchains. I am your host, Chris Coney. Now today is the 9th of May 2017. This is an interview show, so we'll just get right into it. So today I'm going to share with you a conversation I had with two members of the PIVX community, Bryan Snappy and John Spock. Bryan is sort of the community manager guy, and John Spock is one of the developers. Now I need to be very careful in my preamble here not to pre-frame you in any way. This is a rare occasion where I've published the interview a week after I recorded it. That makes a difference because it's allowed me to reflect on the conversation a lot longer than it normally would. Normally, I record it on one day, edit it, and publish it the very next day. So when I record this preamble before the interview that I release, I don't usually have that long to sit on it and kind of reflect on it, whereas this time I have. And I've had a very different experience as a result. What I thought right after the interview had finished is very different to how I feel a week after having had the time to reflect on it. I would argue that having reflected on it for a week, how I see it now is much more accurate, much more balanced and much more rounded than it would be if I published it and made my comments the very next day. Now I know sometimes you like me to give my opinion, but really my primary responsibility is to report to you and supply you with the information to be able to decide for yourself. So I'm not going to say any more. I'm just going to let you go right into it, and then you can make your mind up as to your perspective on PIVX. So without further ado, I bring you two members from the PIVX community, Bryan Snappy and John Spock. So I'm here today with Bryan and John from the PIVX community. Gentlemen, welcome to the Cryptoverse. How are you doing today?
Doing good, thanks.
Yeah, doing great, thank you.
Okay, good to have you guys. So, I mean, this is the first interview we've had with more than one member from the community, so this is a first for the Cryptoverse interview series. So well done on that one. So which one of you guys wants to take this question? The first thing I think we should do for the audience is do a bit of an origin story, like who had the idea behind PIVX? When did they have the idea? Why was it created? Any insight on that you can give us?
Yeah, sure. This is Bryan. This is Snappy. So actually had a real quick conversation this morning with the co-founder of PIVX. So that's 7 Hacks. And in his words, when he was thinking about this back in August of 2015, he wanted to create Darknet, which was then rebranded into PIVX, for the sole purpose of giving people a way to transfer a store of value in an anonymous and untraceable fashion, right? So pretty simple. And as he said, obviously we're not quite there yet. And he's not where he envisioned us being there, back in 2015. But in his words, the project has grown pretty tremendously, and we'll keep working. So,
all right. So, what do you guys each individually do within the PIVX community? Can you tell me that?
Okay, I'll go. So, I'm working as part of the development team. So, I work on the core wallet, which is in C++. So I work along with about 4 other developers, and we're fixing bugs and adding features to the wallet.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and myself personally, a lot of it is almost like community barometer reading. So seeing seeing where people are coming in, seeing where there's we call them bright gems popping into the community, engaging with the community members, and almost just directing people and fielding questions. The other side of it is working hand in hand with the marketing folks, so working on ads and distributions into the public limelight.
Okay, cool. So do you do the whole, like, where did you hear about PIVX question to the community members?
Yeah. So it's engaging, and so what's interesting to that is, when we were less than 100 people in Slack, pretty much all of us were doing that. Just, hey, welcome to the community. How'd you hear about us? And what's kind of remarkable now is, I think we're over 4,500 members. I almost don't have. I can't do it fast enough. There are so many people now that have just picked up that and started to welcome new members in. It's pretty awesome. So.
Okay, that sounds good. So. What's the biggest way that people have discovered PIVX? Let me think of mine. How did I hear about you guys? Probably in the news article, just doing the normal Cryptoverse thing. And then I'm like, oh, what's this? Studied the article and then started researching it and so on. And then the first time I mentioned it on the show, in the comments, the community members were like, oh yeah, we're in this community as well. You should cover it. You should cover it some more. So I guess my answer to how I discovered it was just in the general news. I can't remember specifically where it was, but what's the general feel? How does most people find out about
it? I don't think we've been able to quantify yet what's the number one. We've had quite a few that came. We did a series of ads on CoinMarketCap, okay. And we got quite a few from those people. Again, because at the time we were running it, it's always nice when the market's going up. People look at the name and then pop in. The other has been pretty wild word of mouth, which might defy logic within crypto, but it's been people coming in going, oh, here's 10 of my mates, they're bringing them in, or this is my best friend from college and he's now in this. This is new for him. This is brand new. He's not in crypto. So those two seem to be the majority of people. Yeah.
Also, surprisingly from other Slacks. We mentioned by someone. So I know we were mentioned on the Dash Slack and Nexus Slack and also even Shadowcast. So you'd see like one or two people come in and then 3 or 4 more would come in. They're like, oh yeah, you're from this Slack, aren't you? Okay. So it was kind of funny.
I suppose it's good for people to use the same usernames in all the various Slacks so that you can recognize people. I think I've got a Gravatar account. So my thumbnail profile image just automatically comes up on all the different profiles if I use the same email address. But if you use the same username, you can be known in various communities around the crypto world, right? So here's a question: How are these? So say if someone brings like 10 of their mates into the PIVX community, how are they selling it to them, right? What are they saying that like the benefits? You should look into this particular currency rather than any of the other myriad of currencies that are out there.
We don't do that.
You don't do what?
So we don't I guess say sell.
No. I mean
a lot of it.
I mean the new community members. I mean, what are they highlighting about PIVX that encourages their friends to come into the community? Is what I mean.
A lot of it is you just got to come see this.
Okay.
You've got to get in and just see what happens, and it's a different beast of a crypto community, and Slack for that matter. Especially within crypto. So, I mean, you'll pop into other Slacks and it'll be tumbleweeds and you might have a post here and there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, our general threads almost turning into a Snapchat just because of how fast it goes sometimes,
right.
Which is its own problem. So there's that sense of, hey, there's something alive here. And then a lot of times what they're doing is there's people here who are actually working and willing to help you in a genuine manner. So if you're new to crypto, look, 5 people will jump in and start talking to you about here's the basics of it, or you've got a problem with your wallet. All right, here's a support thread, and now you've got 4 or 5 community members working with you in a hangout to help you solve problems.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that community feel that seems to be coming first, and then all the sort of technical aspects seem to be second when talking to other people.
Mm-hmm, sure. I guess the users are always going to outnumber the people who are interested in the tech, because if any of these cryptocurrencies are going to become, mainstream. The mainstream at large are the users rather than, you know, like me, marketing people or technical people or so on, right? So
Yeah.
it makes sense to have that, you know, that welcoming mindset, you know?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
why did each of you guys join the PIVX community amongst all of the others you could have joined?
I'll go on that one. So I actually had been in crypto for most of last year, and actually had bought into crypto even a couple of years before that. But I started getting interested from a technical point of view and trying to understand it. And so I kind of played around with some other currencies. So I played around a little bit with Dash code, and then later I played around with some code in Vcash, and Vcash completely crashed. The developer left. The currency dropped by like 80%. It was a mess. And so at that point, I started looking around, and I liked the features of Dash and Vcash, which is both the privacy, the instant transactions, and also masternode features. So I started looking around to see what else was around, and I came across Darknet, and at first I didn't even know it was a currency, and then eventually I figured out it was, and so I started getting involved in playing around, and that was right around the time, probably about a month or two before the rebrand. So it was really had the feel of a nice small startup, and you know, the value wasn't very high, so it seemed like there was a lot of potential there. And so I just like, there was no funds really either for paying developers, so I just started working on it out of just because I kind of believed in what it was trying to do at that point. So that was probably about December last year.
So John, maybe this is a question for you. What kind of skills and expertise do you need to do what you do, like to be a cryptocurrency developer?
Excuse me. Well, you basically, for most wallets, you need to have C++ experience.
Okay.
Mostly because that's what Bitcoin was used for and are used in, and you know, most cryptos have forked from Bitcoin, so it's pretty heavy C++ coding. It also is good to have some experience with cryptology and how it works. You don't really need an awful lot of that because generally that is not changed very much between one coin and the other, unless you're doing something quite difficult like Zero Coin or Zcash or something, which is then a lot more involved.
Right.
So of course, we're not only going to do the core wallet, we'll probably do mobile apps. And so generally, there's different languages and different experience for that, depending whether it's Apple or Android. And then, of course, you know, to work in crypto, it's not just developers. So we really need people with good marketing skills and good social skills and all those things. And I think that's what's great about PIVX. It's very well balanced with not just developers, but a really great group of people that are really, you know, we've done great marketing. We had some great graphics to go with our marketing and social media presence and all that. So it really, I think, was a great team effort. And I think that's partially why we've been so successful. It's a combination of various factors.
Sure. Earlier on, like a few minutes ago, you were talking about like you were a member of another cryptocurrency community. Was it Vcoin or something? And then you say, yeah, it kind of crashed and burned. And this is one of the reasons why on the Cryptoverse, I don't, if I do like a market roundup or something, I always say, look, I only stick to the top 20 or something. Because to my mind, if a coin now makes it to the top 20, which today, if I look at coin market cap, you need to be a $50 million plus market cap to make it into the top 20. So my logic there is that at least it's sort of crossed a threshold of some kind, where all of the really, really weak projects will just never see the top 30 probably. They'll do probably what John was saying there. They'll just sort of they'll be burgeoning and then they'll crash and burn, or the developer will leave, or any fundamental flaws will be identified and will kill the project before it causes any or even gets off the ground, right? So does that happen quite often? I imagine it does. I don't study the bottom of the coin market cap list, but do you think that happens quite often? And what is that tipping point where a project becomes solid and sustainable? You got some thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, I can chime in from a non coding developer's perspective in that regard.
Sure.
I've been involved with some other cryptos as well in other communities. I think there's a blend. If you focus strictly on tech development and don't engage a community, right? You go back to the old marketing thing of you can build the best widget in the world, but if nobody knows about it, then it's not useful, right? And on the flip side, you can build a really shoddy widget and just wrap it around a ton of marketing and get into the market and make a ton of money. Which one? But at that point, what we've seen differently, at least within PIVX, is there's a core component and a heart component to a higher integrity of being human to one another. That, in a lot of cases, in the lower quadrants of the market cap coins, it's tough, right? It's tough because you have to have factors of I'll call it genuineness, right? There has to be a sense of trust inherent in the system for people to get involved.
Okay.
People inherently trust credit card transactions, right? Why? Because whatever, they've been around. Like you were saying, you trust the top quote unquote 20. Why? They've crossed a threshold. They've crossed a mental threshold. So for those lower coins to be able to move around, and look, moving from 500 to 100 is a big jump, right? Now it might not mean a big market cap, but typically what happens is you'll have core members of a community that make out, right? They do really well.
Sure.
And a lot of times that's their focus. That's not in all cases. It's a general broad thing. The focus isn't on a community. It's not necessarily on getting integrated into XYZ project. It's more about just doing a crypto. So there doesn't tend to be a vision, or there doesn't tend to be a direction of a purpose. So,
gotcha.
And I think that's why you see the ones that are at the top. Either they've had a massive influx of energy in the forms of capital, or they've had a massive influx of energy in the form of people, and that will sustain a project through its development lifecycle.
Is that what you would plant your flag as being like the differentiating factor about PIVX?
In terms of human capital?
Well, you talked about bringing the, what do you want to call it, authenticity or the genuineness.
Yeah, and this isn't to say that other coins don't have that, right? I mean, at the end of the day, like crypto is just, cryptocurrencies, blockchain, it's a tool. It's something that we as humans are using, right?
Yep.
It's another tool that we're exploring of how to, in theory, make our world better, right? And do something very different than what's been presented to us. And I think what shines through PIVX is you've got this heterogeneous mixtures of people from all different backgrounds that are resonating in that core, right? So when Satoshi put out, the white paper and that, it changed the world. It revolutionized in a framework of thinking about transactions and ledgers and what can be done with it. And I think what PIVX is getting back to is the human component of that, right? So we went so far into developing the technology and what can be used for and make tons of money and XYZ. And you have a bunch of people that I personally believe the majority of individuals really just, they want to do right. And I mean, that was a lot of the conference we had this weekend. You had people just sitting down, looking at each other going, hey, whatever happens with this thing, it's really good to know you. And
sure.
let's stay in touch, right? Yeah. So that becomes the old world. Hey, we used to barter. You used to know your butcher. You used to know, who was around you. That's the community feel I think people get involved with PIVX about.
So where does that come from, though? Yeah, and how do you maintain it? Because ordinarily, we're in the world of these networked organizations now, right? Where in the traditional hierarchical organization, you'd have the visionary leader. You'd have your Steve Jobs, or you'd have your Bill Gates, right? And it would be their personal mission, vision, philosophy that would be the flag, and people would flock to it as, yes, I believe in this cause. Whereas that's with a networked organization, what, like, say, where does it come from in this new world, and how do you maintain it when there is a community where everyone is supposedly, has an equal say in it?
Yeah, that's a very
well. That actually goes back to one thing we talked about early on before branding, was the swarm methodology, which is by this guy who founded the Pirate Party in Sweden.
Mm-hmm.
And the basic idea is that if you just put out an idea out there and have some kind of manifesto, that people will be attracted to it and will come to it and will drive it.
Right.
And that's something we all kind of believed. And it actually, I think that's partly the reason where we're at too, because a lot of people saw that, and they saw how we were trying to emphasize privacy a little more than other currencies. And, we have a little manifesto. And I think that kind of, in the absence of one kind of main leader driving everything, people also saw that they could all contribute and they could all be part of this. And I think that is, what is different from the traditional kind of leader-led corporation.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
Yeah, and Chris, jumping back in of how you sustain it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in the traditional top-down model, the sustaining element comes through, it funneling through the top down into people, right?
Yep.
Okay, you're gonna do this, or I'm gonna give you a raise, or whatever it is. So it's the energy to continue to work or to strive comes from an external source, right?
Uh-huh.
It's always an external source. The difference I feel with PIVX and the community is we're empowering people to believe their internal sources of who they are.
This is interesting.
You've got talent, right? You've got abilities. Go take over Facebook. What do you mean? I'm not part of the community. Yeah, you are. Like, you're doing amazing work. Go run it. And the guy who took over, it's insane, right? So this is happening. And I think that's how you can sustain any community, is you either use what I'll call an external force mechanism, or you do an empowering internal power mechanism with people of saying, look, you're great, right? What do you like to do?
Sure.
Who are you? Let's get to know you. Go get plugged in. And then it's up to the individual if they adopt or not.
Okay.
We're not telling them, it's very different.
This is interesting. Yes, this is very interesting. This explains why there are 1,000 different cryptocurrencies, because you can find your own, is the way I would put it. I've covered a few episodes of the Cryptoverse with these experimental private cities. There's all kinds of, there's Fort Galt, there's one in Norway, and all this kind of stuff. And just each cryptocurrency has a different monetary policy. It's a different economic system which you can voluntarily choose to be a part of. Well, below that, though, there's actual human community that has values that, shared values that are established around the basis on which the project was founded. I was going to say a minute ago, aren't we still reliant on the founder? And then I was like, oh, well, Satoshi Nakamoto, of course not, right? It was the document. It was what John just said about the manifesto, whatever you want to call it. It was the Bitcoin white paper that really people rallied around. So now, and this is probably why this whole community begins like this project, where's the white paper? Because that is almost like the manifesto. And then people read that and then decide whether it resonates with them, if it's a fit for who they are, if they want to rally around it or not. What do you think to that, Bryan?
Yes. Yeah. No, I think, that's, yes. I think you hit it on the head. And I think this goes back. We're never going to have one crypto, right?
No, never.
Because there's how many humans on this planet, how many people are in crypto. We're all going to ascribe and be attracted to different facets, right? So as you said, go explore, find the community that seems to resonate with you or that you're attracted to.
Or even a handful, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. The difference, or the difference can come when you have a centralized community, right? Which is in the case with John. John experienced that. You had a single or very small point of failure, You know, if the dev leaves, then there goes the project, right? In essence, because now you're without a leader.
Right.
Versus a more decentralized organization that's built on a community, you really lower that points of failure, and it gets distributed out across many people.
Right. Sure. It's interesting, isn't it? So now it's like express yourself, right? Study the various currencies, find the ones that resonate, and then, you know, become a part of them. That's the freedom of association that I'm going for. So actually, you can help me come to that clarity. I asked the question with generally not really having the clarity on that, and then you said it's about who they are, and then that kind of helped me leap to the next level and go, that's actually what's going on all over the crypto world. It just happens that whatever PIVX stands for has attracted the people who are like that. Like attracts like, right?
Bingo.
Right.
You got it.
So that's where we've got to drop the competitive mindset. It's not this crypto versus that crypto. This one's better than that. It's like, that's like one person is better than this guy.
The word compete in Latin translates to seek together.
Really?
It's not about winning or losing or coming in first. The actual to compete means to seek together, which gives the entire crypto community a very different feel, right? We're seeking together. Now, some people want to win. That's a whole different mindset and energy source. But if you're actually competing, then what you're doing is you're working collectively and collaboratively without even expressing it with everyone else in this arena of cryptocurrency to seek together what? A new world, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, that Latin insight actually revealed some of my own conditioning. The word compete in my mind, well, unconsciously, I think I've got it linked synonymously with win-lose.
Yeah.
Whereas you just revealed it is the true meaning is win-win, which is interesting. To seek together, do you call it?
Yeah, to seek together.
Okay. You see, I'm going to have to look into that because that is fascinating. That completely changes one's meaning of the word compete and competition.
Yes.
I think that most of the world has got that wrong. If that Latin origin is correct, then wow, we've all got it wrong. Okay, this is pretty good. I like it. All right, so let's move on to a technical question. So the elephant in the room is like everyone compares PIVX to Dash. That's fine, right? What are the major differences? Because I don't think that's clear to people. The major difference that I see is that PIVX isn't a mineable currency in the terms of proof of work. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so how does the mining in the PIVX world work?
So PIVX is based on proof of stake, which means that basically rather than having external miners which are running computers to create the coins, the new coins are created by people that already have PIVX.
Okay.
And they actually have a node on the network, just like a Bitcoin node. And because they have a node on the network and they have a certain amount of PIVX, they are then allowed to essentially compete as well together to find the next block. And it's done in such a way that the computational power to create that block is very low compared to mining. So, which means you don't need a very high power computer. Pretty much any computer will do it. So it's that combination of being on the network and having a certain amount of PIVX already that allows you to stake, which then creates coins. And those coins are distributed. Some go to the person staking and some will go to the masternode owners, which the masternodes are another feature which are similar to Dash actually to help in other aspects of the network.
Okay. So I've actually got the PIVX core wallet running here, and I've actually managed to get the staking feature activated. So I followed the little video tutorial from the PIVX website, and I've now got my little green arrow at the bottom that says I'm now actively staking the balance in my PIVX wallet. So that's kind of interesting. So that's as far as I've got though. So what will happen next? Now I'm staking that. I keep my wallet open, right? And then what's it going to be doing in the background?
So you need a certain amount of PIVX to get a relatively fast frequency of staking or creating new coins. So if you only have like 5 PIVX, it might, on average, you might only get a reward block or a block every year or every couple of years
Okay.
even. So it's really, really low. So reasonably, you need thousands probably of PIVX, at least 1,000 to see something like every day or every week. I forget the actual number.
Okay.
So yeah, so if you have 10,000 is probably like every day. If you
Okay.
have, you know, something smaller, it's less frequent.
Of course, it's making more sense to me now, right? Because it's like a lottery. So
Right.
if I'm basically mining individually, maybe I'll win the lottery once a year and get a tiny piece or something. But that's why you want a larger balance, so that it makes it more likely, or at least more frequent, to be getting some of that reward.
Right.
Okay, that does make sense to me. Okay. The other major difference that's only occurred to me within the last couple of weeks is, well, it's PIVX, so it's Private Instant Verified Transaction. Now, this is a distinction that Ricardo Spagni from Monero made between Monero and Dash. He said, like, well, Monero's privacy is by default, right? So is this the same with PIVX? Are all transactions private by their nature? You don't have to do anything to make them private and instant. Is that correct?
No, that's not correct. Since we were a fork of Dash,
Mm-hmm.
at this point we do have the same model as Dash does
Okay.
for privacy.
Right.
So we are working towards adopting the zero coin protocol, which would allow us to make everything private by default.
Okay, that makes sense. Because when I was looking at the wallet when I downloaded it like a week ago, the start obfuscation button was there, which confused me because at the time I was like, okay, what I believe about PIVX being automatically private wouldn't make sense because of that button, right? I wouldn't imagine that button was there if it was private by nature. So that's good to know. So you still need to click it in order to do like a coin mixing thing. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I don't think we were intentionally advertising it as always private. People may have misunderstood that, but that was never something we're trying to convince people that we had at this point.
Okay. What about the instant feature? Is that default, or do you have to do anything for that?
That's also not default. So this is a feature of the masternodes, which basically allows you to do an instant transaction. So normally transactions have to be verified through the blockchain. And although PIVX blockchain, the blocks are actually close together, they're 1 minute versus like Bitcoin's 10 minute.
Mm-hmm.
You still need more than one confirmation. You know, you have to go through probably a few blocks to really, really know that block has been confirmed.
Right.
So the instant transaction, it uses the master nodes, which effectively lock in a transaction, and that can be done in a fraction of a second. So it'll appear on the network like it already has 6 confirmations. So, and like I said, it gets effectively locked in. So to people receiving that, it will look like it's instantly confirmed.
Yes.
And again, this is pretty much exactly the same how Dash's instant transactions work.
Okay, gotcha. Actually, I didn't notice. I don't think I've ever been to the send tab. I could have answered that question for myself because the Swift transaction tick box is actually there. The reason I didn't check it is because I was under that illusion that it was turned on by default. But thanks for clearing that up. It's a good job I asked the question. Which kind of invalidates the next question I was going to ask, is that if they were by default private and instant, does that mean that when you withdraw PIVX from an exchange, they send them instantly in a private way? Well, I suppose the answer to that is no, because they wouldn't bother paying the extra fee or integrating that extra technology. That's probably true, isn't it? Like if an exchange wants to support those more advanced features, that would cause them more work. Is that right?
That's probably true. And at least what I've seen in terms of Dash is that some networks, I don't know any of the exchanges that actually support the privacy feature.
Right.
And there are very few that actually support the instant transaction, although maybe a bit more so now than before. So by default, they probably won't be supported. And it does require more probably collaboration between the developers and the exchange developers to make sure that those features would work correctly.
Sure. Did you say that you were working on making them default or not?
In terms of the privacy, we're working towards that, and potentially even the instant, So I can't say that we can definitely do both of those. So, but there's a lot of details to be worked out. But I think that's where we'd like to go if we could.
Okay, cool. So here's a more general question. How has the PIVX project been funded so far?
Yes.
You want to?
Yeah, no, it's, I think when it first got off the ground, I think that was out of, just all out of pocket. And up until recently, it has largely been the energy efforts and out of pocket for just pumping back into the community. So with each transaction, Spock, you can help me with this one. The governance, which we're working on a new name for that, but the funds or the percent of the block reward that's going to be assigned to help develop the projects and aspects of the coin in the community is now back up. So that means that with every block reward, 10% is going into basically is going to get assigned into those projects. So
okay, gotcha. Okay, makes sense. So are there any latest developments in the PIVX technology that you can share with us, or any, not necessarily the technology, any just general developments in the project that you can share with us?
I think we got added to Changely recently.
Yes, I saw that.
Yeah. So we did have something with POS wallet for a while, but then they decided to not support us. So also I think Livecoin, we have something going on there. Do you remember, Brian, anything on that?
Yep. So Livecoin, we're on Livecoin now as well. So I forget the number of exchanges that we're currently
I had to buy mine
on,
from Bittrex when I was testing it out.
Yeah, so Bittrex, is obviously the big known one, which has been interesting because that's it's been part of the whole discussions about like what's going on with Polo, and it's almost becoming a running thing between PIVX and the rest of the crypto community. But so let's see, markets. I think we are currently now on 14 markets.
Okay.
So so Litecoin, Litebit.eu, and then Cryptopia, Bittrex. So those are pretty much the biggest.
Okay, cool stuff. And of course, Changely is a good one because then you don't even need an account for that. You just boom, straight up. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Right, so I guess each of you in turn the magic wand question. So Brian, you can go first. So if you had a magic wand and you could wave it and solve just one problem in the world of Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, and blockchains, what would it be?
This is a very esoteric answer because I think it applies to all aspects of life. I think what it would be is the one problem that I see within cryptocurrencies is you still have that nature of having to win, right, or having to beat out.
Sure.
And this goes back to what we discussed about
the win-lose thing.
So the one problem for me that I see is as human beings working together in this. This is a tremendous opportunity for everyone. We're still operating from an old framework of defensiveness, of fear, of control, to a large part. Even though we're working with this new technology and this new ecosystem that provides, an out, as it were.
Yes.
We're still adopting these old frameworks of conditioning of how we have to deal with one another as human beings. So for me, that one, if I had a wand and I could tap it, it would literally be breaking down the masks and breaking down the barriers that we have towards one another in communications.
Right. So you'd have a sweeping change in attitude from the old definition of competing, like a contentiousness, to a true cooperation towards the same goal.
Yes.
I think that would completely transform it overnight. Yeah. So I like it.
Yeah.
So, John, what would you do with your magic wand, mate?
The biggest issue I see is getting in and out of crypto and just the kind of on and off ramps. So one issue is getting onto the Apple platform is really difficult. They allow very few currencies on there, and it just really crimps adoption from growing.
Yeah,
and the other is
just
bottleneck. Yeah, and the other is, of course, having to go through Coinbase or other various services to get your crypto. It's still quite difficult for people to get in and out of crypto.
Sure.
And so I'd like to see some way that could be just a lot easier, less regulations. That, why can't you just buy crypto through your ATM at your bank or something?
Right, right. Theoretically, we say why, but we know why. So,
Yeah.
All right, guys. So is there anything else you want to talk about that I haven't mentioned yet before we close?
Nothing from me.
No. I mean, this was pretty comprehensive.
Okay, good. That's good.
Yeah.
So where can people go to keep in touch with the project and follow you on social networks? Can you give all those kinds of links out for us?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, probably the best thing that you can do is pop into the Slack. So if you do go to slack.pivx.org, that'll be basically, that's the hub of where most of the community hangs out, right? So we also have a YouTube channel set up. Reddit is, subreddit PIVX. Twitter is _PIVX, and Facebook is PIVX Crypto.
Okay, superb. Well, Bryan Snappy and John Spock, thank you very much for being on the Cryptoverse today.
Hey, thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Chris. It was great talking.
All right, guys, see you soon. So thanks for joining me today, guys. If you liked this episode, hit the like button. If you disliked it, hit the dislike button. Please leave me a comment below with some feedback and get subscribed. And please support the Cryptoverse and boost cryptocurrency adoption by going to cryptoversity.com/podcast and becoming a patron. From just a few dollars a month, you can secure Cryptoversity's future, get unlimited access to all Cryptoversity courses, and access a private patrons-only chat group where you get direct access to me. That is all for today, guys. I'll be back tomorrow with another episode of the Cryptoverse. So until then, it's me, Chris Coney, saying bye for now.